Hello everyone and welcome back to The Attic. So last night I noticed there was a little bit of speculation online over the fact that my various copies of The Thornbirds, the 1977 Australian romance novel that inspired the hit 1983 miniseries starring Richard Chamberlain, had disappeared from the book pile, and I just want to assure everyone we are, looking into it. Our best guess is I left the window open to let the wasps out, and the Thornbirds took advantage and flew away. Now, generally, birds fly south for the winter, but thornbirds fly, as you know, if you've read the book, where their passions take them. Anyway, we're hoping they come back, but in the meantime, the thing we definitely don't want to come back is the coronavirus. Our segues are getting worse, right? It's not just me that's thinking that. Anyway, the president ignored repeated warnings in his intelligence briefings that the pandemic could be devastating, and now he and his sycophants on state TV are pushing people to go back to work before it's safe. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. We already know that the president ignored repeated warnings from public health experts and intelligence officials about the threat posed by the coronavirus for months. In fact, ABC reported that an intelligence report warned of the coronavirus crisis as early as November, and that analysts concluded it could be a cataclysmic event. Of course, back in November, Trump had bigger things on his plate.
They don't want to use the term Thanksgiving. And that was true also with Christmas, but now everybody's using Christmas again. Remember I said that? But now we're going to have to do a little work on Thanksgiving. People have different ideas why it shouldn't be called Thanksgiving, but everybody in this room I know loves the name Thanksgiving, and we're not changing it.
The war on Christmas was breathtakingly dumb, but at least I understood it. I mean, what else would we even call Thanksgiving? Green bean casserole avoidance day? The festival of gravy farts? It was a miracle, Timmy. They had but only one gravy boat, and yet the farting lasted for 8 nights. Of course, that idea, like all of Trump's dumb ideas, was something he regurgitated from Fox News. Trump could see literally anything on Fox News, and he would mindlessly repeat it the next day. I saw the great Tom Selleck, Magnum, PI himself, talking about reverse mortgages, and it gave me an idea. Why don't we create a reverse coronavirus? It would reverse the symptoms and make you better, but be exactly like the coronavirus. And then when you shook hands, you would be curing people. I don't know. Maybe worth a shot. What do you think, Fauci? Fauci, I can't hear you when you talk through your hand like that. It's blocking. I'll just assume it's full steam ahead, Fauci. So Trump was getting warnings about the coronavirus as early as November, and then on Monday, the Washington Post reported that in January and February, he was also getting warnings in his daily intelligence briefings.
The Washington Post reports tonight, U.S. intelligence agencies issued warnings about the novel coronavirus in more than a dozen classified briefings prepared for President Trump in January and February, months during which he continued to play down the threat. According to current and former U.S. officials, the repeated warnings were conveyed in issues of the president's daily brief, a sensitive report that is produced before dawn each day and designed to call the president's attention to the most significant global developments and security threats.
So while Trump was telling everyone it would disappear like a miracle, in case it would soon go down to zero, he was getting private warnings that actually it was a big deal, which means either one of two things. He was lying or he didn't read it, and honestly, both are probably true. Trump's like a high school student doing a book report who not only didn't read the book, but even if he did, it would go way over his head anyway. Beowulf is about a wolf who's also a lifeguard. That's the Bay part. Works with Pamela Anderson. And once Trump heard them refer to it as the novel coronavirus, he was never going to read it because he's never gone near a novel. They should have told him it was called Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue coronavirus, and he would have at least thumbed through it. Well, I mean, she's a 10, but her friend's a real dog. We should do something about her friend. Create a task force or something. You know what? This is probably not fair of me. I'm sure the president read the briefings.
But the alarms appear to have failed to register with the president, who routinely skips reading the PDB and has at times shown little patience for even the oral summary he takes 2 or 3 times per week.
Not only does he not read the briefings, he loses patience during the oral summary. What do they have to do to keep this guy's attention? Have his daily briefings delivered by pageant contestants? My name is Brianna. I'm from Battle Creek, Michigan, and a new virus spreading across the globe has a 3.4% mortality rate. But this fits with what we know about Trump and how he consumes his intelligence briefings. For example, soon after he first took office, it was reported that National Security Council officials have strategically included Trump's name in as many paragraphs as we can because he keeps reading if he's mentioned. He prefers killer graphics like pictures, videos, and charts. The president also favors tiny nuggets of intelligence that pop out at him during his daily briefings. He wants tiny nuggets, killer graphics, and to see his own name. So he wants a birthday party. He wants a child's birthday party. Look, Donald, Ronald McDonald is here with your daily intelligence briefing. On Tuesday, Trump was asked why he downplayed the threat, even when he was getting warnings to the contrary, and said he'd have to go back and look at the dates of the reports.
Can you clarify what your intelligence advisors were telling you back in January and February? Were you warned about what was happening with coronavirus and the threat to this country? Should there have been stronger warnings?
No,
what were you hearing every day?
I think probably a lot more than the Democrats, because a month later, Nancy Pelosi was saying, let's dance in the streets of Chinatown. You go back and you take a look at even professionals like Anthony was saying, this is no problem. This is late in February. This is no problem. This is going to blow over. And they're professionals, and they're good professionals. Most people thought this was going to blow over.
Getting warnings in your presidential
Well, I'd have to
delivery
check.
about
I would have to check. I want to look as to the exact dates of warnings.
Okay, a couple things. First of all, Nancy Pelosi did not say, let's dance in the streets of Chinatown. What are you talking about? It sounds like a lyric from a Tony Bennett song. Let's dance in the streets of Chinatown. Let's go swimming in the Hudson River. That sounded good. These attic acoustics are outstanding. Can we get that over to Columbia Records? Why? Oh, because you're a WASP? Well, I'm sorry that I thought you might add some value. Sorry, where was I? Oh, right. No one was saying this was going to blow over beside you and Fox News. That's not how public health experts talk about pandemics. That's how Real Housewives talk about their feuds. Look, just stay away from Ramona for a few days and this will all blow over. It's just one of many examples in which Trump has aggressively ignored advice and warnings from his own experts, like when the CDC issued new guidelines recommending that Americans wear face masks to prevent the spread of coronavirus. When he announced the guidelines, Trump added that he personally would not follow them.
The CDC is advising the use of non-medical cloth face covering as an additional voluntary public health measure. So it's voluntary. You don't have to do it. They suggest it for a period of time. But this is voluntary. I don't think I'm going to be doing it. I don't know, somehow sitting in the Oval Office behind that beautiful Resolute desk, the great Resolute desk, I think wearing a face mask as I greet presidents, prime ministers, dictators, kings, queens. I don't know, somehow I don't see it for myself. Maybe I'll change my mind.
Guess I can't be that surprised that a guy who's unprotected sex with porn stars and pops cheeseburgers like Tic Tacs would ignore a warning from the CDC. Seems like he might be more a roll the dice kind of guy. And I'd say there's a good chance you'll change your mind because you change your mind about everything. We all know Trump is easily swayed by, the last thing someone said to him. He's always like a senile family patriarch whose kids are fighting over the will. I'm giving the house to Tyler. Why should he get it all to himself? You're right, that wouldn't be fair. Get out of here, Tyler! Trump's only capable of exactly one thought at a time. He's our first amoeba president. And second, I think you're having trouble picturing that scene, not because of the mask, but because of the desk. You're never there. You're always golfing or out on the lawn yelling at reporters like an old man telling the neighborhood kids they're not getting their Frisbee back. And when you do show up, your desk is spotless, like a busboy just cleaned it off. I mean, even the desks at a furniture store have a calendar or something on them so you can imagine yourself working on it. This is what a desk looks like after you've been fired and all your stuff is in a cardboard box with a fern sticking out of it. Damn, that picture makes me want to sing. Dance in the streets of Chinatown. Have a drink with the Statue of Liberty. Go swimming in the Chicago fountain from the opening credits of Married with Children. Anyway, so Trump wouldn't wear his mask even though his own government recommended it, just like he said the coronavirus was no big deal when his government was telling him it was. But as we all know, the sycophants around Trump have always had to mimic him for fear of incurring his wrath. And so yesterday, when Vice President Mike Pence visited the Mayo Clinic, he declined to wear a mask, despite the fact that the clinic requires visitors to wear masks, and they made Pence's office aware of that fact before the trip. Well, at least that image will last forever. I mean, look at that. He's the only one not wearing a mask. Why couldn't you just follow the rules, man? Do you think if you purse your lips hard enough, the virus can't get in? He's like the ass who shows up at a restaurant with no shirt and no shoes, still demanding service, yelling, "Give me crab cakes or give me death, man!" And Mike, you may not have coronavirus, but that doesn't mean you can't spread the other diseases you do have, like, for example, rheumatoid gravitis or chronic furrowed brow or mayonnaise blood. Pence was asked later why he refused to follow the Mayo Clinic's guidelines, and his answer didn't really make sense.
Mr. Vice President, there's obviously been some controversy since you got here about the decision not to wear a mask around the Mayo Clinic, as the governor and other officials here did. Could you just walk us through why you made the decision not to wear the mask, even though the clinic said that they tweeted that they had asked you to do so?
When the CDC issued guidelines about wearing a mask, it was their recognition that people that may have the coronavirus could prevent the possibility of conveying the virus to someone else by wearing a mask. And since I don't have the coronavirus, I thought it'd be a good opportunity for me to be here, to be able to speak to these researchers, these incredible healthcare personnel, and look them in the eye and say thank you.
You can still see people's eyes with a mask on. It's the Mayo Clinic, not Daft Punk. For real, how do you think you're supposed to wear a mask? Because it's never supposed to cover your eyes unless you're thinking about 50 Shades of Grey. Which means you've seen 50 Shades of Grey. Mike Pence, you nasty. But this gets at a core maxim of the Trump cult. They see themselves as above the rules and above you. That's why Trump and his sycophants on Fox News are all talking about reopening the economy and proclaiming that we all need to get back to work. What they really mean is you need to get back to work, while they all sit comfortably in safe isolation, you know, like Real Housewife of Westchester, Jeanine Pirro, or Long Island Lurch, Sean Hannity. This crisis has revealed everything the conservative movement pretended to believe in to be a fraud. And there's really no better example of that than the protest you've probably seen on TV against the stay-at-home orders. In reality, polls show the vast majority of Americans support the stay-at-home rules. But these small protests are being ginned up by right-wing groups to support Trump's push to prematurely reopen the economy. Groups like FreedomWorks, which played a pivotal role in the Tea Party movement 10 years ago, specifically decrying bailouts. The New York Times reported that among the applicants for loans from the Small Business Administration stimulus package is the foundation arm of FreedomWorks. The president of FreedomWorks said, "I would love someone to give us free cash." I mean, you gotta love the Trump era when people just admit their this out loud. Hey, maybe say we want the money to pay our employees in these trying times. Nah, I'm gonna go with I'd love free cash. And I have an idea, FreedomWorks. Instead of freeloading off the government, why don't you pick yourself up by your bootstraps and take some personal responsibility? Better yet, go out there and get a job as an essential worker in a grocery store, or as a postal worker, or in a meat processing plant. All you have to do is change one letter in your name and boom, you're no longer FreedomWorks, you're Freedom Porks. This crisis has revealed once again that everything these people told you about the conservative movement and what they pretended to stand for was a lie. They're all frauds, and now they're all sycophants to an incompetent authoritarian who repeatedly ignored warnings about what was coming. And one day, when they're all out of power, I'll be the first to say, hey everyone,
Let's dance in the streets of Chinatown.
this has been a closer look. We've been talking about City Harvest on our show during this crisis, and you have been incredibly helpful. So if you can, please keep giving. With unemployment skyrocketing, they are keeping their trucks full to feed the growing number of New Yorkers who are turning to them to put food on their tables. If you're watching this online, please hit the donate button. Stay safe. Wash your hands. We love you.